This is absolutely crazy. This is Pandora, my 1,000-gallon cloud rainforest vivarium, which is connected to Orcadia, my canopy vivarium, simulating life up in the trees, and Hydromeda, the rainforest's wetlands. Within this vivarium trinity lives a thriving biodiverse ecosystem of plants, fungi, and creatures, all involved in a giant food web. It's my personal biological project to study how ecosystems work in the wild. And I'm currently using a wheel called the Wheel of Gaia to determine the ecological events that happen in our rainforest. And last week, the Wheel of Gaia landed on New Amphibian, which was perfect because I had just the creatures for the introduction. A ton of tree frog tadpoles. But the thing was, I wasn't sure if the wetland's various predatory fish would end up just killing them all, like a swarm of piranhas on chicken. In the end, after adding in the tadpoles, the shocking, never-before-seen sight I spotted left my jaw on the floor. Welcome to Episode 3, Season 5 of my Ecosystem Vivarium series, where Mother Nature shows us how rapid transformation is a superpower for survival. Here on the Ants Canada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC Fan. Enjoy. Little froggy legs hung like floppy appendages of a string puppet from one of the tadpoles. This tadpole was among the eldest of the bunch within the tadpole nursery, all waiting to be rehomed. The nursery housed over 100 tadpoles of varying sizes, all of whom were born from eggs laid in Hydromeda by the forest's resident golden tree frogs. It's been a prolific breeding season for sure. But before we go on, I've been thinking, what should we name this school of tadpoles? Let me know in the comments section. But my biggest concern right now was whether or not these tadpoles could survive Hydromeda, particularly Hydromeda's predators. It would be such a waste to see all these tadpoles eaten. I would soon find out, but nothing could have prepared me for the big surprise I would be seeing later that night after adding the tadpoles in. A surprise that had to do with these floppy tadpole legs. So in case you're new to tadpoles, tadpoles are the larval stage of an amphibian, in this case frogs. These tadpoles are fully aquatic and are born with gills, just like fish, allowing them to breathe underwater. But what's super interesting is as the tadpoles grow up, they start to develop lungs for breathing air. These youngest tadpoles still have their gills covered by skin, so they're happy to remain at the bottom of the tank. But the older tadpoles must come up to the surface periodically to grab a gulp of air. The older the tadpole, the more air they need. Now, around the time their lungs develop, the tadpoles start to grow their pair of hind legs, which at this stage they can't really use. They kind of just flop around as they use their swim tail to propel them where they need to go. Once the tadpole's front legs start growing in, then the tadpole gains the ability to use its legs, at which point it becomes a froglet and crawls onto land to become predators, feeding exclusively on creatures. A complete change in diet from when they're tadpoles, because as tadpoles, they're detritivores, feeding on decaying organic matter, herbivores eating plant material, and algivores consuming diatoms and algae that they find in their environment. It's actually pretty mind-blowing to consider the crazy degree of change these tadpoles undergo in just their first couple of months of life as they transform into frogs. They go from looking like fish to a full-out frog, go from living in water to living on land, and in this species the trees, and go from eating detritus, plants, and algae to eating insects. What a crazy life cycle, wouldn't you say? But back to the question on whether or not these tadpoles could survive Hydromeda. Here's why I wasn't sure if they could. presenting Hydromeda. In terms of plant life, Hydromeda has certainly evolved and is flourishing wonderfully. The aquatic vegetation has grown in quite well. Check out the variety of plant life encrusted on the hills of our wetlands. My Boosie is looking healthy and as lush as ever. These waters are a stunning garden paradise for all the creatures living within. A nerite snail was sliding along the glass, feeding on algae growing on the glass surface. I love watching its mouth parts scrape the fibers of algae. An algae eater was sucking algae off the surface of leaves. The Corydorus catfish were busy vacuuming detritus from the sandy surface. And the shrimp, named the Skittles, picked away at any edibles. There weren't many Skittles out at the moment, seeing as the majority of them hide away during the day, and as you'll see later, emerge only at night. They do this to escape predation when the predators go to sleep. Which brings me now to the predators that, in my mind, posed a real danger to the tadpole's survival. Massive schools of tetras filled these waters, and I'm certain they totally ate the first generation of tadpoles from the very first batch of frog eggs laid in Hydromeda that I allowed to naturally hatch within these waters. And sadly, every tadpole disappeared, never to be seen again. That's hundreds of tadpoles eaten. These tetras are hungry little piranhas that will devour and gang up on prey creatures, including the Skittles, which is why they, especially the babies, emerge only at night when the fish are asleep. The Skittles make use of the various hiding places in Hydromeda that I felt the tadpoles could also make use of, like these huge clumps of Rotala. And the massive mountains of driftwood. The tetras rarely go deep into those areas. But even still, there was one other fish species the tadpoles would have to worry about. A fish that was extra adapted to hunting for meat. One of the dwarf pea puffers was on the prowl for its next protein meal. The pufferfish usually feed on small snails and the odd shrimp or two. I'm sure these pufferfish also had a taste for tadpole meat, and I began to wonder if they could even go as far as attack and kill full-grown tadpoles. I mean, their mouths are built to crack open snail shells. Now, I do agree, however, with what some of you have mentioned, and that is that we should allow the fish to go on and eat some or most of the tadpoles. Because 1, it happens in nature, and 2, if the fish don't eat the tadpoles, they'd eventually all turn into tree frogs, and I'd just end up having one massive tree frog population, which also isn't good. Whatever the case, I felt it would be interesting to find out whether or not this tadpole introduction would lead to a tadpocalypse for the tadpoles or a tree frog population boom in our forest. But the predation issue aside, the tadpoles did have enough food in Hydromeda. In terms of decaying organic matter and vegetation, Hydromeda had plenty of both. Also, see the fuzz on the surface of the sand? Those are diatoms, and the most abundant tadpole food of all, algae, has actually been a growing concern as of late. Despite the wetlands having a small team of algae-eating creatures and cleaners, I've been watching algae grow in patches over some of the mosses and some plant leaves. Now, some algae is okay in a tank, as they're part of healthy ecosystems. But algae, when left unchecked, can totally choke out the plant life stealing nutrients and sunlight from them, which is bad for the ecosystem. So I felt not only did Hydromeda have all the things that tadpoles needed to survive, but the tadpoles possessed the algae-eating feeding behaviors that Hydromeda, as a wetlands ecosystem, needed to survive. I could understand why tadpoles were so key to aquatic ecosystems. Now was the perfect time to add them into our wetlands. But I decided it was best to take a page from the Skittles and make the tadpole introduction into these waters at night while the fish were asleep, just to give them the best chance at survival. This was going to be epic. Night fell in Hydromeda, and at this hour, the wetlands transform as the day shift creatures go to bed and the night shift creatures emerge. This species of Corydoras catfish loves foraging for food at night. The fish, including the puffers, were all entering their sleep mode now, which meant it was witching hour for the shrimp. I watched as the swarms of shrimp began to spill out onto the sandy floor, like little kids emerging into the schoolyard for recess, to enjoy sifting through its sands for edibles. Suddenly, a flash of pink caught my eye. Above the waterline, I spotted Shortcake, our resident Pac-Man frog. She was also up and waiting for food to scuttle by. I watched as she nestled herself comfortably into a bed of moss. I then spotted up in the branches, the tree frogs had also emerged, the parents of the tadpoles. They were out hunting for prey. Seeing the frogs all out now here in Hydromeda made me feel really happy as I began to consider that at one point, each one of these frogs began as tiny tadpoles, born from a mass of eggs. I never really stopped to consider how incredible of a transformational journey these frogs underwent since they were born. And after having watched the journey of our tadpoles, I now understood how miraculous it was to have these frogs here with us in Hydromeda. In nature, not all tadpoles make it to adulthood. Only those that manage to survive earn the right to enjoy life up on land, and later to pass on their genes over to found the next generation. It was in that moment that I realized how much I loved frogs. And so it was time. Here was the plan. My idea was to gather the tadpoles and carefully dump them all here into this driftwood entanglement, just so the tadpoles could have an immediate place to hide once in. It would also not alarm the fish, as dumping the tadpoles here, where the water enters the sump filter, would keep as much of the scent of the tadpoles as possible from floating to the rest of the tank. AC family, let's do this! I began to collect the tadpoles. I fished out as many of the tadpoles as I could, placing them into a container. Believe me, my precious tadpoles. Welcome to your new home of Hydromeda. I carefully dumped the tadpoles into the waters. And just like that, they were in. I went to see how the tadpoles were. I spotted a few with legs, swimming and surfacing for air. The tadpoles seemed kinda dazed at first, but it wasn't long before they settled right into their new aquatic community. Out of my way, bobblehead, a shrimp pinched, pushing the tadpole forward. I then spotted a weird tadpole with 3 legs. Where was the other one? Was this a deformity? Strange. Once the tadpoles got over their first few minutes of shock, I noticed them beginning to feed from the floor. Mesmerized, I watched the tadpoles of all sizes feed and explore their new massive home. A vast world they never knew existed. Even the smallest tadpoles had come out to explore their new home. Mixing in with their ecological competitors, the shrimp, a cardinal tetra who had stayed up late was snooping around, but didn't seem to bother with the tadpoles. I guess the tadpoles were now too large for the tetras to eat. It actually looked like the tetras had not been alarmed by the introduction of the tadpoles, and that our plan to add them in discreetly had worked. I watched in awe as the tadpoles fit right into their new aquatic home. I was happy to see that the tadpoles were settling in nicely, though they did need to learn how to deal with the bullies, as well as hide. Some of them were already scoping out the hiding spots. The tadpoles were absolutely stunning in their new home, and only time would tell if they would survive. Even if just one of this whole swarm of tadpoles could survive, I would be happy. It was then that I spotted something truly spectacular. Oh my! What? AC family, check out what I saw! A froglet, with all 4 of its legs, emerged from the water. It looks like one of the tadpoles had developed all its legs and was ready now to leave its aquatic life behind and emerge as a new animal of the land. How crazy is that? I did not expect to see this so soon, or even see this happen at all. These were the froglet's first moments on land, breathing air, with functional legs that could climb and stick to glass. It no longer needed its tail and would be absorbing it into its body now, over time. I couldn't believe we were witnessing this milestone for this frog. But what I found the most surprising was its size. This froglet was truly tiny, about an inch long in length. I imagined the tadpoles would have grown much larger before emerging onto land. This froglet was about the size of an adult cricket, tiny enough to fit in the mouth of its mother, and definitely bite-sized for shortcake. This soon made me realize that the journey for these tadpoles turned froglets was far from over. They now had to contend with their new role in the ecosystem, which was hunting for prey, but also becoming prey themselves if they weren't careful. The latter was definitely key to me, because I completely assumed that once they reached the froglet stage, that they were pretty much free from danger at that point and would grow up into adult frogs until I had a tree frog overpopulation. But now I realized this wasn't the case. They still had to evade getting eaten by other frogs, huntsmen, the micro squirrels, and plus they also had to learn to hunt for prey now. As froglets, they would still be completely at the mercy of the ecosystem, but with a whole new slew of challenges on land to contend with. The next day, I checked hydrometa, and indeed the tadpoles had all gone into hiding. Just like the shrimp, I could only spot the largest of tadpoles here and there, but they were also tucked away within the foliage, trying to be discreet. The pufferfish looked extra fat and were hyper-focused on the hunt today, which to me meant that yes, the pufferfish did manage to eat some of the tadpole meat. But I wasn't too worried, as I felt the puffers wouldn't be able to eat enough of the tadpoles fast enough to make that big of a difference. For the most part, it seemed the tadpoles still had their survival instincts intact, and so did our little froglet, who had found an ideal spot of his own in which to hide, not too far from the water, in case he needed to make an emergency leap to watery safety. Having tadpoles living in hydrometa and developing into frogs was a long-time dream of mine since I first built these wetlands. And today, it had all become a reality. In my opinion, frogs are one of the most underrated animals ever, important for ecosystems, both on land and in water, where they play multiple roles, depending on their life stage. And after seeing all that I have with these tadpoles, I've come to realize that frogs are definitely one of Mother Nature's coolest creatures. Real-life Pokemon that evolve and morph into higher forms along its life journey. I couldn't wait to see how many of these tadpoles would actually survive into adulthood, and hopefully go on to found a second generation of hydrometan-born tree frogs next year. The frog story in our rainforest had only just begun and can only get more and more riveting from here on in. I spun the wheel of Gaia to see the next event. Oh. Interesting. Vote in my community tab to affect this story.